This first set is dead even.
Unbelievable combination.
Wow.
Beautifully done.
What a great spot.
Hello, and welcome to the 2025-26 APTA Tour. We are live from the Montclair Golf Club in West Orange, New Jersey, bringing you the 2025 Montclair Open with live streaming brought to you by the APTA membership and our tour presenting sponsor, Corians. Tournament support has also been provided by the following local sponsors: Back to Nature Home and Garden, Freddie Miranda and Ann McCarthy of Prominent Properties Sotheby's International Realty, Spyro Harrison and Nelson, New Jersey Women's Platform Tennis League, New Jersey Men's Platform Tennis Association, Millbourne Total Wellness, Beacon Wealth Partners, New Jersey Flex League, Center Court Padel Club, Designer Appliances, North Jersey Rackets, and Master Athletics. I am Steve Sullivan with Dave Broderick, bringing you this men's semifinal match between Irdoja and Graham McNerney against Milos Dabic and Enrique Pardo De Andrade. Dave, welcome to the 2025 season.
Well, thank you, Steve. Excited again. You know, I did an earlier match, and I'm looking forward to this one. It should be a lot of fun. We'll let Mike Ushimsky finish his announcements. All right, so we had the player announcements. Poor guys that were visiting from Irdoja's home club didn't get much of a cheer as much as Mick and Graham did. But anyway, no, Steve, great to be here. Look forward to this. Just want to remind everyone this year, new for the APTA tournaments for the men, best 2 out of 3 sets with no ad scoring, server's choice. My last match, we watched that, and it built a little bit of excitement into it. What do you think about the new rules so far?
I love it. And I think, you know, there's a number of discussions over the past 2 seasons about the length of play. How do you remove the 5-hour match from a viewer's perspective, also from a player's perspective. Certainly during a long day, the athleticism, got very tricky. I love no ad, right? It brings a little bit of excitement, a little bit of pressure. Will it shorten those 3 to 5 hour matches? We'll see. I think This is an interesting test. But I like it. I think it gives a different flavor. No ad, in tennis, things went to no ad, and I think people felt differently about it. I like it in platform. So I'm excited to see how it plays out during the season.
No, and I'm kind of along the same lines as you, that I don't know if it's going to shorten every match, but it's definitely going to make each match more exciting the more deuce games there are. I just think at the end of the day, some of these deuce points might get a little bit longer.
I agree. So we have Enrique Pardo De Andrade serving in the far side. His partner, Milos Dabic, fault there. So on the near side, this is going to be Graham McNerney in the ad court, light blue shirt with his partner, Irdoja.
And Steve, I got to be honest, talking about, shortening matches, I don't think Mick's out here looking to play 5 hours.
Well, this is, as we've spoken about, this is his, big coming out event of the year. This is his home club. He's the, the head of the rackets and the paddle program here. So, yeah, this is exciting. I like the lefty righty matchup. I like his sort of, willingness to go for shots like that one. This may not be the longest match ever, but I'm excited to see some.
No, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be sort of the cat and mouse game that we're going to watch, is Dabic and Pardo De Andrade trying to keep the ball away from Mick, because I think if they go to McNerney, they kind of know what they're going to get. Where Mick is a little bit, he's going to keep him guessing, and he's willing to play a little bit more aggressive. So I think this is going to be a fun match to watch.
I agree. So we have a little bit new technology this year. Streambox Labs, one of our streaming partners, they're bringing us some new graphics. We're going to see some draws. I think we have about 250 or more players this
260,
weekend.
260.
8 different draws from PTI to a challenger on the men's side and the tour events. So not just Montclair, but the surrounding clubs. Really big event, sort of kicking off the season, and a beautiful weekend weather-wise.
Maybe a little too nice for platform tennis.
Little too nice, right? This is a beautiful day for the spectator. For the player, it's tricky, right? These warm weather days, certainly it's different from what we see in January and February, but it brings in different considerations, right? The ball is very active, certainly in the 2 women's matches I called earlier today. It was tough to keep those volleys on the paddle. The drive was not just a drive, it was really more difficult for the volleyer. So it'll be interesting to see how this, how this warm ball really sort of plays into the match.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about earlier in our match today, is that, it's interesting because as tough as it is to drive, it's going to be just as tough as volleying.
All right, a little discussion about the call. It's dusk, so the visuals, in the next 20 minutes, it's probably going to get a lot cleaner. Still see some shadows out there. So we have Graham McNerney, our defending national champion, with Adam Morgan. Yeah, I think he's the steady one on the court. I think you said it right, Dave. He's going to give you what you expect from him. He's in no rush to go anywhere. He's not going to be trying to finish too many points, but he's still that big presence at the net. And I think as these points get heated, Graham's going to be a very interesting part of potentially being able to finish some of these points.
Well, I think if you're Dabic and Pardo De Andrade, you really have to know where McNerney is at the net, because he's getting on top of the net. He's volleying, so I don't think they can just go and hit drives anywhere. They really need to make sure they know where McNerney is at all times when he's on the net.
Really big cuts by Irdoja. I think we heard in the pregame him use the comment Roller City. All right, he's going to be taking some big cuts, big swings. Likes to put a lot of juice on the ball.
Steve, just for the record, I wish I could take a step over the net like McNerney.
I can't either. You got a piece of him there.
No, I think that was wide though. And Steve, I think if you're Dabic and Pardo De Andrade, I don't think you can kind of get caught up of being in the semifinals of the event. They are definitely the less experienced of the 2 teams. I think they just have to be patient and do what they have done to get here.
I agree. You have to come out and you have to play. You have to compete. It's the semifinals of a tour event, the first event of the season. Yeah, this is sort of a big deal. Dabic and Pardo De Andrade are a team, right? So this is a great sort of kickoff to the season from a points perspective, from a ranking perspective. They should just be out here, enjoy the weather, enjoy the night, and compete, right? Irdoja and Graham aren't necessarily, the team that, right, they're not the team that won the national championship. Anything can happen.
Graham may have saved an outball there.
So that's the opportunity with the roller, not just mixed roller, but where you start that ball off the screen, you can see that tendency of Milos to kind of go back up to the screen, try to get that block. So he just sort of, he knew the movement, he knew the tendency, and just sort of played right into it.
Yeah, he's got to make sure he's got to stay out of that corner. or I think Mick's going to tie him up. And I think when you watch this, platform tennis is a game where, as great of players Dabic and Pardo De Andrade are, a lot of it has to do with just having the experience in the moment. And, Mcnerney, Irdoja, they're both national champions. So, they've been there, they've done it, they've seen it all.
Yeah, it's a game of obviously technique and strategy, but the reality is it's also a game of being comfortable, being patient, being in no rush. And I think this is where Irdoja and Mcnerney, right, they have that experience. They've played at the highest level of our sport. The other two, the challenge with paddle is you get in these periods where you think you have to press and do something extra. Or
right.
To me, which is it's the trap in this match for Dabic and Pardo De Andrade, that they just need to play, see how the match sets itself up, find opportunities, not trying to overplay, but they also aren't going to get a lot of free stuff on the other side of the net. So,
right, and that's a great point, and I'm glad you said it about they fall into the trap of trying to do too much, because I was thinking as you were talking there, I was thinking about that's the one thing where Irdoja and Mcnerney know that if things start getting tight or going sideways, they've got to try to do less, because again, they know that works. They've been there, they've done it. That's sort of the winning formula in platform tennis.
Right. The more you try not to win, and you can sort of see from just a movement and a footwork perspective, Dabic and Pardo Andrade are all over the place, right? They're bumping into each other in the middle. They're crossing over. They're trying to switch to get back, to their more comfortable sides. Where Irdoja and Mcnerney just kind of look calm. They're taking some slow steps. They're moving to the right spot.
Well, like I said earlier, when Irdoja and Mcnerney get up to the net, Dabic has to be locked in, because I don't envy him having to deal with Mick's overhead.
Yeah. And it's not just that it's the lefty and it's a different spin, but that is tricky in the deuce court. It's not what he's going to typically see, and Mick's better than average, as we know.
And he gives you the big roller, he gives you the spin, he gives you the slash.
Yeah, a little bit ambitious on that shot from Enrique. I think it's, even Mick's just finding open spots. He's not trying to do too much with the ball. He's not trying to win the point on the first one. He's looking for it on the second or third. And yeah, those are points you have to take your medicine, put the ball back in play, and
that one I just did a drive down the middle of the court. And I think, to your point earlier on, I think, with the whole no ad scoring, I think, again, people are going to start playing to it differently as they get used to it.
Yeah, it puts pressure on different points, right? The 40, 30 point, right? Those points become, especially when you give up a 40-15 lead, a 40-love lead, getting back to deuce, the pressure dynamics change very quickly with no ad.
Right.
So I think those sorts of situations, how people play the 40-30 point, serving or receiving, are going to be very interesting strategically, as right, we're going to start, I'm sure, keeping statistics about how many deuce points are being won, who's winning the big deuce points.
Right.
Hopefully we can gather some stats on that, because I think that's going to be a very interesting tell of who plays the big points well. No ad, there's nowhere to hide.
Well, it's like we were talking about it in the earlier match I did today, where it's like, the team that gets the 41st, they feel like they have several game points to win, but if the other team wins the game, does it affect them more mentally? Does it wear on them more? So I think that's going to be an interesting part of it.
Yeah, you're always sort of fighting without playing
Right, because
perfectly free.
if I run out to 40 love, I have several chances to win that game now.
Yeah. This is where that warm ball is going to come so quickly off the back screen that the transition games can be very, tricky of, does it get them what they want?
Right. And you see Dabic and Pardo De Andrade hit 2 balls through Mcnerney and Irdoja, and they didn't take over the net.
Got nothing.
And then Pardo De Andrade got maybe a little impatient with that one and made a mistake.
That was just nasty spin right there.
Yeah. And again, and then when there's a chance, Irdoja is a super smart player. Again, he's been playing forever, national champion. But he can close on the net in a heartbeat.
Oh, they're working hard back there. This is one of the benefits of the lefty-righty. They're just, he missed the one he wanted. There's just so many different looks and different spins that these two are going to give Dabic and Pardo De Andrade. They're going to be working hard tonight. I think Mick wants that one back.
And even though Dabic and Pardo De Andrade won that point, they're thinking to themselves, if that's the way we got to win points tonight, we're in trouble. Because to your point, they were working really hard for that point.
Yeah, really, really good lob over Mcnerney's head, but he's just all over it.
Stay. Come back. Come in. Hold that. Hold that. There. You. All you. All that. You. All that. You.
Gave him a little bit of his own medicine with the big slash right at him.
I think he did. Irdoja was sort of playing an interesting position instead of letting that come to the side screen. But great spot. You definitely have to use the opponent as a target sometimes.
And I'll tell you what, this game, Dabic and Pardo De Andrade are lobbing way better.
They're lobbing great.
They're keeping the ball deeper, so Irdoja's not just torturing Dabic over there in the corner with the different variety of overheads. They're lobbing really well up until recently, but they're really starting to get their lobs a little bit deeper.
Go! Make 2 balls! 30, 40.
Trying to get a little energy behind him. It's a grind. It's obviously a big point.
A little bit of a loose mistake there by Irdoja.
Yep. Just as you said, the lobs were getting deeper. The last 3 points, they got really short.
Yeah.
That's just an impossible place to play from if you're, trying to dig out of those corners.
And again, as close as Dabic and Pardo De Andrade were to winning a game, they get a couple opportunities with the no-ad scoring, and they wind up losing the game. And again, how much of a mental toll is that going to take on them?
I think that volume ended up in the bunker. Mick has such a slow way of coming through the ball, especially when he tries to, use his one-handed backhand. Just very clean contact.
But he hits it so heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Steve. What do you think? If you're Dabic, Pardo De Andrade, what do you do here? What do you change up? I mean, the problem is they haven't really had that much to say about what's going on in this match.
Yeah, they've been on defense. They, you called it very early, Dave. The ability of Mcnerney and Irdoja to control the net with so many different options, so many different spins. Obviously, some lefty-righty options. Like, it's not. At some point you think, okay, is there different strategies, is there a different location, is there a weak spot we can't find, we didn't find? To me, there's nothing obvious, right? They're being outplayed. We need to find a way to sort of slow it down, get control in that, find a way that these big, Enrique's hit a couple big ground strokes that got him nothing, no transition.
Right.
So they just need to find a way to get a little momentum, and, been a couple loose shots in the last game or so from Nick. Maybe that's something they can try and exploit, but that's, play it at your own risk.
That is a good way to describe it. Hitting it to Mick, play at your own risk.
40, 30.
You got Mcnerney almost on the service line, returning that big serve from Enrique. It's a little intimidating. May has saved him one there, but I think you got to play it.
And you watch again, another point where Dabic, Pardo De Andrade are leading in the game, but in this point they're just fighting for their lives. They're battling.
And that's what happens. You get forced into hitting the ball that, I think actually that's probably one he needs to take a cut at, but you got to make it, right? There's no other option. Mcnerney can stay there all day.
And I think because of their good positioning and their very good shot making, it kind of forces the error. But anyway, hey Steve, Corian is the official wealth sponsor of the APTA's 2025-2026 season. Corian is a fee-only wealth manager who puts their clients at the center of everything they do. Learn more at Corian.com. Big thank you to Corian for sponsoring and all the local sponsors to help with the making this event possible.
It takes a village, as they say. It's a lot of support. Both volunteers, the clubs have to really sort of step in and do a lot to make these events happen. But there's also a financial commitment. The prize money that the APTA has sort of, garnered for these players in the last couple of years is just going up. So it takes a lot of financial investment. We've talked a little bit about some new technology this year that APTA is bringing to us from a streaming perspective, and it's really just a thanks to the sponsors. Someone like Corient is sort of the bedrock for the APTA this year, but week in and week out, there's 10 to 20 companies that really make these events happen.
I do think if you're Dabic and Pardo De Andrade, from what we've seen in these first 5 games, I think they may want to hit more balls to Irdoja, and I kind of laugh as I say that because he can go out and just hit 30 winners and the match is going to be over, but he seems to be the one making a couple of loose mistakes early on as we're getting later in the first set. So like you said before, it's kind of a double-edged sword of, Mick's making some mistakes, but do we really want to give him a lot of opportunities?
And it's been, 2 or 3 mistakes? He just stripes a one-handed backhand to take over the net. Like, it's the talent's undeniable. Ooh, what a dig there. Yeah, it's pick your poison. They're down 4-1 pretty quickly, so at some point, you're looking for different areas where we can get some points, and points can lead into a game or two, and then you can get a little momentum, and you never know what happens. But yeah, Mcnerney, any way you slice, it's not going to give you anything without 40 or 50 shots at the point to take it.
There we see the big roller as promised. Steve, you can't say Mick didn't give us the game plan before.
He did. I think Pardo De Andrade, I saw a little look the way he walked back to the returning position there. Look at that. Comes right back. Mick takes one step behind the service line and just sort of keeps that in play. So the risk reward is sort of tricky on these drives.
I think the lob went out of the court. Steve, beautiful day and night in Montclair, New Jersey, or I believe West Orange, New Jersey, at the Montclair Golf Club.
Right, we said it earlier, great day for spectating. It's a tricky day for paddle. We'd love it 20 degrees cooler, but this is what they have, and I think, it could be raining, it could be a lot of different things, so. Yeah, the paddle strategies change with the weather through the season, and this is, something you see come back in a March day around the time of Nationals as well. All right, so all conditions. Milos Dabic, I think, is next up to serve, and you can see these two looking at each other with a non-confident demeanor about their body language.
Well, I think they've got to be thinking about just wondering to themselves, how can we win points? What do we need to do to win points? And I think part of it, again, is McNerney and Irdoja. They're doing a good job of not letting them get into points.
Yeah, Graham's just going to sort of find some spots. Dabic is 2 steps behind the service line, hitting some of those lobs back. So Graham's going to just dissect these two.
Well, and then there's the problem, because when Graham starts lobbing really well, now you have Mick hanging out in the middle of the court waiting to bomb forehands.
We talked about this a little bit before, Dave. That big slash overhead, a lot of spin. Those balls sometimes work against you in this type of weather. Oh, great hands there from Enrique. Oh, and he missed the easy one. All right, we'll be back in just a moment after these messages right here, provided on YouTube APTA.
At Corient, wealth management begins and ends with you. We believe the more personal the solution, the more powerful the result. We treat your goals as our own. We never lose focus on the life you want to build. And our experienced advisors design custom-built strategies to help you get there. It's time for a wealth management experience as sophisticated as you are. It's time for Corient.
Again.
Welcome back to the APTA Tour. We are here at the Montclair Open in West Orange, New Jersey, with this men's semifinal match between Irdoja, Graham McNerney versus Milos Dabic and Enrico Pardo De Andrade. Dave, a quick first set from a paddle perspective. It was definitely one-sided. We see a couple statistics here. I'm not sure they're that indicative of anything that was different than what we saw. If you're Dabic and Pardo De Andrade, what do you think as you're going to get a drink, you're sitting down, they're not rushing to get back on the court, which might be a good sign?
Yeah, no, I think it's a smart play to maybe slow things down a little bit, because, that went by a little quickly in paddle time even. That was a quick first set, and again, I think as you and I have been talking about it, Irdoja and McNerney are making it very difficult for them to win points, but I think they just got to, stick with it and kind of try to grind it out a little bit more, because otherwise, I don't know how they're going to win points.
Yeah, you hope in paddle, you get the momentum, genie's on your side, and you can do something to turn this match around. The problem is when you look on the other side of the court, there's not a lot of confidence that McNerney and Irdoja are going to give you something, right? And if you're those two, this is where you just dig deep and keep grinding for the next couple of games. Dabic and Pardo De Andrade may just go away, right? So the first couple of games of this set, I think, are important. Mick's been standing on that line ready to serve for about 2.5 minutes.
Right.
So, yeah, let's see if they can extend the points. I think you're right. They just got to stay in it a little bit longer and give themselves a better opportunity.
Right. I think they just have to, even in the first set, 6-1, as well as McNerney or Irdoja played, Dabic, Pardo De Andrade still made some mistakes they shouldn't have made. I don't know if that would have made a big difference. We kind of see the first point right there, lob long. In this warm weather, you can't lob long. Let Mick hit a slash overhead winner before you lob long. But you know, again, I think they just have to look to extend points, hit the right shots, and you know what? Don't lose the match. Let Mcnerney and Irdoja win. And again, we see Dabic, Pardo De Andrade going for a drive there, and you know, McNerney's right on top of the net. You really have to lob him a lot to get him off the net.
Yeah, they got a couple stretches in the early part of that first set where their lobs were moving McNerney out of the service box, but you know, you have to look at yourself after Mick just stripes a one-handed backhand roller. You know, they're too good.
You see, there's a smart play by Irdoja. He knows he hit his serve a little bit too hard. He knew the ball was going to get driven, but he also knew that it's 90 degrees out, let it go off the back screen, and just walk up to the net.
Yeah. Yeah, this is sometimes the difference, you know, a tendency you see with like a Johan Duran. The better players know where to be. They know where that first step needs to be just to be very efficient. And at times it looks like they're walking, right? They're moving very slowly, very methodically. Sometimes the lower level teams look like they're just exasperated, running around the court. They're jumping up and down. You can see that a little bit from Dabic and Pardo De Andrade, that, you know, they're trying much harder. And when you can see it, you know, it's nice to see the opposite. And I think you're right. Mick knows where the ball's going. He's not rushing to be anywhere. Lets it come back off the screen one step, and he's back at the net. It's a hard 1 point there by Pardo De Andrade.
And the problem with that is, you know, turned out to be a really good shot because he hit the roller at the nick. Turns out to be a good shot. But there we see where Mick hits the nick, but not as cleanly, and it turns into a forehand drive opportunity for Dabic. So, you know, I think not a bad strategy for them, but they just have to be careful. A little bit of daylight here maybe for Dabic and Pardo De Andrade. Interesting overhead there.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit further back than he wanted to be, and he tried to put a little bit too much action on it. Well, it's a better start than the first set, so it's, you know, you build off what you get.
Yeah, and again, you know, they can't, look, they're not going to win 12 games that quickly. It's going to take time if they want to grind this out, but they're not going to win a quick match here. And, you know, they got to take it one at a time, and, you know, you break serve. You don't want to start off with a fault on the next return, on the next serve. And I think that's a big difference, Steve. Like the really good teams, you know, when they lose a game, they come back and they just play an even better game the next time.
And Graham saw that coming.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, in this weather, it's the good, bad play. It's good when it works, and it's not so good when it doesn't work. We've seen another one of the Irdoja specials, the one-handed backhand roller overhead.
Yeah, it looks great, but it's just a different look. It's a different spin. It's a different pace. There's just so much variety. And when you're fighting for your life, a really nice move there by Dabic.
What a shot by Mcnerney.
Just a little confusion, a little miscommunication.
I'm not really sure where Dabic was going on that one. I think he thought that was going to be a little bit more towards the middle of the court. And kind of like what we talked about earlier on, you know, you saw that last point where Graham was playing very patient, you know, and Mick started to slide over looking for the big forehand. You know, Mick's not looking to get into 70-ball rallies. He wants to create.
They've played Graham a little bit more in these last couple of games.
Well, again, I think it comes back to fan ball there. It comes back to, you know what you're going to get with Graham. You know, he's going to drive the ball he's supposed to drive. He's going to lob the ball that he's supposed to lob. You know, I mean, at this stage, look, they know what they're going to get from Mick. Mick's hitting drives at them all night long. It's just what do you want to deal with? Kind of like what you said earlier, pick your poison.
And I like that, you know, Dabic is a little bit more active. He's taken a couple chances. You know, it can boil down to, is it good enough, right? And you just can't give the free points. But will their push, their energy, if they can get a little momentum, will it be good enough? This is going to be the challenge over the next couple of games. And the reality is Mcnerney and Irdoja are not giving up anything. They may be losing a couple more points, but they're not giving up anything.
Right. The one thing I was a little surprised about was, you know, Dabic, Pardo De Andrade won that first game, and, you know, thought maybe it would light a little bit of a fire or give them a spark, and, you know, they still seem a little flat.
Oh, what a spot. But you can see the right first shot. Enrique moves to the right spot. He just absolutely hammers the volley and gives, you know, Irdoja and Graham a chance to sort of just chase it down with a couple steps. It's the weather makes it super tricky to sort of get that ball. You know.
And by the way, Graham hits it down the line, on the line.
Right.
Great get there by Dabic to keep this point alive.
Mick has absolutely crushed the net on a couple of leg courts that have just stayed in the court.
Well, Steve, that hit the leg court, and I think it was a lob over Dabic's head.
but you got to go 40 shots in with a lot of different changes of energy at that point, and it's it's a lot for Dabic and Pardo De Andrade.
Yeah, I think too. I think they're starting to, even though it's early second set. I think it's getting to them. I think what they have to do to win a point is really getting to them.
Irdoja Mcnerney, they lead 2-1, second set. Irdoja Mcnerney won the first set, 6-1.
A couple of the draws that are scrolling through on the screen. We mentioned obviously the tour events, the Challenger, but I watched a match yesterday that they streamed that was a 80-110 PTI combined. So it's one of the things in the last couple of years, the APTA has really brought this handicap system in to give so many more opportunities for club players, people from all levels to sort of compete week in and week out, maybe get a little gear, go to a club that you've never played at before. So it's really nice to see all the opportunities. We mentioned 260 players this weekend in the clubs in and around Montclair. So really nice representation of the New Jersey leagues putting together this event.
Yeah, 130 teams, 8 different draws. So, great way to start out the 2025-2026 APTA season.
Another changeover. Dabic and Pardo De Andrade in no rush. Talking, drinking, taling off. It's obviously a hot day. But it's encouraging. I mean, this is early in the season. This is a team that's going to play probably together most of the season. So it's a great learning opportunity, right? You're not going to get a lot of chances to play Mick in a tour event. Graham's the national champion. You got to take it for what it is, right? You go out, you compete, you learn, maybe you pick up some things. And if you're Dabic, you're still getting better, right? You're still learning the game. You're still figuring out different tendencies and strategies and screens and spins. So yeah, it's pretty encouraging to see them sort of taking their time, not just going back to the next point.
And I think, again, just to bring it up, for Dabic and Pardo De Andrade is that, this is a little bit of a different setting for them. They're not always in the semifinals of tournaments, and, you kind of have to learn and be in this position to get better at it. One thing I have seen more in this set already is Dabic and Pardo De Andrade are, just making Irdoja and Mcnerney hit more balls.
Step one, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're them right now, if someone said to them, look, there's a chance you might lose this set 6-1. Do it in 2 hours. Don't do it in, like the last set, 31 minutes. Because the last set, it didn't really seem like they had a chance.
Right.
At least right now, every point they have a chance. Or they've had more chances.
15 low.
And there you go. You grind 2 points. You get 2 uncharacteristic errors from first one Irdoja, second one from Mcnerney. There's another one. And you get a chance to put another game on the board. And to your point before, with no ad scoring, the new rule in the men's side this year, they have 4 game points in a row, right? So I know 3's a lot, 4 is even more. So it gives you a different mental perspective on, how you play the rest of this game, and 1 more free shot, and they're back all square too.
And I think in the first set it was a little bit of a combination of, Mcnerney or Irdoja played really well, and they were making it awfully hard to win points. Now they're giving a couple points here and there. And again, I think that's what it's going to come down to for Dabic and Pardo De Andrade. Just, you know, they're going to have to grind it out and not try to win, you know, with 2 sets in 1 shot.
Two early mistakes in points to start this game. That's 3. Oh, off the line.
Nobody. No! 30-15.
Mcnerney just gets so on top of the net.
There it is, Big Nick.
You know, and I think, Steve, you know, anytime Dabic and Pardo De Andrade have gained any kind of momentum, any kind of, you know, positive energy, you know, you watch that Irdoja hits the nick to end the game.
You know, it's interesting that the tempo of the last 2 games started
Very
moving
quickly.
a lot started moving fast, and
Yeah.
that can work in either direction. I think it can be good for Dabic and Pardo to sort of, when no one's paying attention, sneak a few points in a row, put a couple games on the board, and all of a sudden things are a little bit tighter. But you're right, every time they've gotten a little bit closer, you know, that was just a very routine game serving by Irdoja, but there were 2 or 3 loose shots, a ground stroke by Dabic and Pardo De Andrade, a couple loose shots to start the game off, and the nick, and it's game over. So,
yeah. I mean, again, you know, I think at the end of the day, Irdoja and Mcnerney are as much to blame for this as anyone. You know, they're playing really well, and again, every time, you know, there's been any kind of a chance of a momentum swing, Irdoja and Mcnerney are just, you know, they're popping the balloon. They're not letting the balloon get too big.
So it's interesting. You wonder, you know, Salazar, Regalado, a little bit Nunez, but Salazar and Regalado really slowed the game down a couple years ago. This really soft push volley, sort of a no rush at the net, not as many cut / overheads as a lot of teams. When you play a Mcnerney, you know, McNerney Morgan or right Christian Broderick or one of those teams that really don't have any ambition to go anywhere quickly, like if you're Dabic and Pardo De Andrade, this is probably what brings in the 4-hour match, the 3-hour match, because that's what it takes to sort of get to a point where something might happen in your favor. If you play quick, this is what happens. You lose the first net in 31 minutes. Now, okay, not everybody wants to be out here for 4 hours or has the ability to be out here for 4 hours either, but this is probably in the last couple of years what brought this tendency for these matches to get a little bit longer. You know, teams are so good, they just decide to stop missing. You look at that dig. I mean, that's
pretty good.
That's a dig that not many people are going to make, and Graham makes it look like it's, you know, second nature.
And to your point from, you know, your opening comments of, you know, I don't know how much no-ad scoring is going to shorten matches.
Right. This type of play is what shortens matches, and I'm gonna.
And as we say that, this is probably the longest point of the match.
Have we gotten a deuce point yet? Did we have one in the first set? We had one.
What's that?
We had a deuce but no ad. I think we had one in the first set. Yeah. Yeah, the games haven't gone to deuce either.
I'd much rather see Pardo De Andrade take that overhead. I would much rather him. I mean, he's standing there. Dabic is backing into him. He's moving. He's off balanced.
And the reality is they're playing McNerney's side of the court.
Right,
So
Dabic should be a little bit closer to the net.
Right, be on top of the net. Let Enrique take the court, play the court sort of traditionally, work that side of the the ad with his spin, with his options. So it's also why, right? Why does Dabic slide back and want to hit that push volley? It doesn't really add any value to the point, you could say.
No. Again, if anything, it's putting them out of position.
40-15.
Steve, they're watching us all the way down in Point Pleasant, New Jersey.
There you go. We're global.
We're going worldwide. Steve Ellis and Jay Nirenberg have us online, watching the live action.
40-30.
So we have a game point here for 3-all. Doesn't seem as close as that, but let's see if Dabic and Pardo De Andrade can get this set tied up here.
Dabic, Pardo, we're tied 3-all. Second set.
It's easy to make them play. If you throw it out, it's not easy. Right?
Steve, I think this game is a must-win for Dabic and Pardo De Andrade. It's only 3-all, but I think it's a must-win game.
Absolutely, and I'm not sure why Enrique felt the need to force that shot running across the court on a sort of nondescript opportunity, but I think you're right.
30-15.
It feels like Graham and Mick could sort of close the door on them with, just a little bit of tighten it up.
I also think, Steve, if, again, I think Mick, Irdoja, and Mcnerney are playing a little loose right now. I think if they win this game, they're going to see the finish line a little closer, and I think they're going to tighten it back up again.
Really nice dig there.
I think we had an overrule there by chair umpire Mike Ushimsky.
40-30.
We did. One of those softballs, you watch it for, it feels like 2 minutes floating over to a spot. You just need it to be out.
You want it to be out.
You just want it to be out. That one missed.
Yeah, I think that was a big game right there.
Yeah, it's a hot day. This is the semifinal match. So if you go back and look through the draw, right? We had around a 32 draw. Irdoja and McNerney had a bye in the first round, so this is their third match of the day. Dabic and Andrade also had a bye, so this is their third match of the day. But absolute marathon against Broderick and Christian in their quarterfinal. So, yeah, this is, they're taking an extended break here. A set in 4-3. They're absolutely in the match, and parts of this match don't feel like it's as close as 4-3 in the second set, but it is. So you just keep grinding. You find an opportunity. You hope Mick and Graham sort of give you a couple points, and then who knows what happens.
And again, I mean, we see this all the time where, if you look at it, this match is not close, but here we are, 4-3, 3-4 in the second set, and it can go either way. I think Irdoja is going to start off with a big swing here. See, and that's a little bit, Steve, of what we've seen all day. Irdoja gives you one with the long lob, and then there's a fault trying to get it to his backhand. We talk about it all the time. Look, Mick's going to hit his forehand. He's going to bomb it. Serve it down the middle. Let Pardo De Andrade move to the middle, maybe help you cut it off. If not, just play it off the back screen. But don't try to get it to his backhand and then miss wide.
Really nice positioning there by Mick Irdoja. 95% of the time, you slide out, you take that as a backhand, likely defensively. He just put himself right against the screen and that hit an angle that sort of put Dabic in a position where he couldn't even get his hands in front of him. All right.
Steve, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you that was a big 3-all game. You see the overhead variety of Mcnerney and Irdoja really keeping. Oh boy, that's a big forehand.
It's a monster forehand. It didn't. I mean, it is what it is. It's a monster forehand. I don't know what the goal is, but I think maybe I know what the goal is.
Maybe 1-6-3-5. We're going for the TKO.
And Pardo De Andrade has such a big windup.
Yeah.
So I think that's what is a little unsettling, that it's tough to sort of pick it up off his racket face because it's just a big old swing. It's not traditionally effective in paddle. Missed it. Oh, overrule. I thought it was squarely out.
Yeah, interesting. Could be a turning point right there, Steve.
15-40.
Now, when the points move quickly, sometimes the teams lose track of the momentum, and I felt like they had it all on their side going up 5-3, but maybe the body shot by Enrique is a little bit of a momentum changer.
I mean, after that break to go up 4-3, the hold for 4-3, and then the break for 5-3, I was getting ready to give my closing arguments. A little bit of a missed opportunity there by Pardo De Andrade.
Absolutely. So now it's all the pressure, right? We got the 40-30 point. When you're playing no ad, it sort of plays mentally a little bit differently.
Well, and the other thing too is it on the return of serve, it just makes him feel like he can't miss it. All right, so we have a match point here on the no ad scoring.
And a game point. Match point, game point. Just like that, 40-15, 3 points in a row. Well, I think it went as we predicted, right, Dave? I think a little bit one-sided. What's your ultimate take? How do you sum up the match?
You know, I think there were moments of Dabic and Pardo De Andrade played really well. They just didn't do it consistently enough. I think every time they had the opportunity to gain a little bit of momentum, they made a couple of mistakes. And granted, part of that is the shot making and the explosiveness of Irdoja. And, you know, Mcnerney is a national champion, defending national champion. He's going to make you hit a lot of balls. And, you know, it's a little bit we saw where tonight it was a bad combination for Dabic and Pardo De Andrade. But, you know, I still think I would have liked to have seen them, you know, drag this out a little bit longer, make Irdoja and Mcnerney kind of earn it a little bit more.
Totally agree. So that's a wrap for us. We come back tomorrow for the women's finals at 9:30 a.m., followed by the men's finals at 11 a.m. So on behalf of Dave Broderick and myself, Steve Sullivan, that's a wrap. See you tomorrow.
At Corient, wealth management begins and ends with you. We believe the more personal the solution, the more powerful the result. We treat your goals as our own. We never lose focus on the life you want to build. And our experienced advisors design custom-built strategies to help you get there. It's time for a wealth management experience as sophisticated as you are. It's time for Corient.
Hi guys, my name is B. Lopez. I'm original from Barcelona, Spain, but I actually grew up in Murcia, in a city in the southeast of Spain. I started playing paddle in the fall of 2022 when I started teaching at Orange Lawn. My favorite paddle memories so far has been with my partner, Thea Page, where we beat Lena Macy. We really enjoyed it a lot. I would say my strength on the paddle court is my forehand drive, especially when I set up myself to drive those forehand.